G4S, the company that likes to say yes to any contract that is waved in front of its corporate face in a bid to make as much money as they possibly can. But can they be trusted? Or just like the Olympics and the electronic tagging fiasco, will they once again fuck it? G4S may get the powers to not only arrest you, but also detain you over fines that are not paid. The consultation period for this proposal was launched back in August and has only just ended, and it lasted less than 2 months. To me, that seemed a very short time period for such a plan. The plans would see HM Courts and Tribunal Services privatising part of its compliance and enforcement operations in a deal worth £290 million. Under the proposals, the government could transfer all services carried out by civilian enforcement officers, who after all are civil servants employed by HMCTS, to the private sector. If the plan goes ahead, G4S could then have the authority to arrest and detain individuals who fail to pay their debts and haul them to court. The courts can already allow authorised agencies, including private firms, to send bailiffs to a person's home to seize possessions to encourage them to pay debts. But this would potentially be a sweeping expansion of the powers, covering so-called warrants of arrest, which are issued by JPs to compel an individual to attend court. My concern is, once you are detained by the agency, where and under what conditions would you be detained? Let's hope they are not like the torture chambers that were reported to be run by the very same G4S. Documents surfaced concerning deaths of inmates in South Africa's Mangaung prison, and they contained allegations that inmates were tortured before they died, while prison registered deaths as either natural causes or suicide. But one such case, as reported by several sources, was one concerning Isaac Nilani. On a cold winter day in 2005, inmate Isaac Nilani asked wardens at South Africa's Mangaung prison, run by British security firm G4S, for an extra blanket. Not a big ask, to keep him warm. The prison walls emitted a chill that crept into his joints and bones. Why Mr. Nilani had been placed in an isolation cell in Mangaung's notorious Broadway section still apparently remains somewhat of a mystery. The prisoner himself is no longer around to connect the dots. And why? Because he died under suspicious circumstances that very day. On May 18th, 2005, G4S registered the death as suicide in their internal records, which WJP has in its possession. According to many reports, several inmates incarcerated in Mangaung prison outside the city of Bloemfontein in South Africa's Central Free State province have died under suspicious circumstances. But that's in South Africa, very far from home, away from this country, where a company with this kind of record now may obtain a contract worth a substantial amount of money to inflict the same sort of power. Okay, maybe not the same level of treatment, but it's worrying, isn't it? What is worrying is the fact that the number of deaths in prison across the West Midlands and Staffordshire has more than doubled. A total of 23 inmates lost their lives inside in 2016 compared to just 10 the year before. Way back in 1993, the Conservative government proposed the setting up of privately run secure training centres in what was said a controversial idea, and remains so today. Can private companies ever be trusted to look after and rehabilitate vulnerable children when their priority is and has to be to turn a big profit? A secure training centre, or STC, in Medway was the first to open in April 1988. The cost of running it had its criticisms. At £125,000 a year for each trainee, it was 5 times as much as sending a child to Eton. The centre would hold a maximum of 40 children aged between 12 and 14, but by January 1999, the centre was already in crisis. There'd been a riot, and a report from the Social Services Inspectorate concluded that children were subject to excessive use of force, including neck and wrist restraints. One of them children was 15-year-old Gareth Myatt, a small 4 foot 10 inches and apparently weighed 40 kilograms or 90 pounds. And the reason for me mentioning that will become clear, but he was restrained after complaining he had wrongly been locked in his room as a punishment, failing to, and here it comes, clean a sandwich toaster he said other children had used. He went on to die of positional asphyxia at Rainsbrook STC in April 2004. Myatt was said to have repeatedly told the officers he could not breathe while they had him bent over in a double-seated embrace, a restraint that was subsequently banned by the YJB. One of the 3 guards who restrained him, David Bednall, was more than 1.83 metres tall and weighed at least, reports have said, 225 kilograms. He was later promoted to health and safety. Does that make sense?
Here he's boasting openly in the kitchen about hurting a 14-year-old child. He's got his arm like that. That was it. It's all the clap. Got down for
At the 2007 inquest into young Gareth's death, John Parker, who ran the centre, said that he had not read the physical control in care manual and wasn't aware of the risks involved. Why would you not do that? It was also revealed that 2 years before Myatt's death, David Tuck, the YJB's monitor, said to have the responsibility of being the eyes and ears of the Home Office, had already raised concerns about the restraint techniques used by guards at the STCs and in Rainsbrook in particular, where young Gareth died. In a letter written to managers in 2002, David Tuck warned of the dangers of young people vomiting while being in this particular restraint hold. More than a year later, he wrote a second time, saying children were complaining their heads were being pushed down into their groins, doubling them up and cutting off their air supplies. Accidental death was recorded at Myatt's inquest. The coroner, Judge Richard Pollard, wrote to the then Justice Secretary Jack Straw to highlight the failure of G4S's management to act on reports of abuses, inadequacy in the monitoring of the use of physical control in care at Rainsbrook by rebound management caused or contributed to Gareth's death. This is the company that the Tories want to come and arrest and possibly detain you for non-payment of debts. We all feel a little stressed when we can't pay bills, don't we? We may sometimes get a little argumentative when a bailiff knocks on the door. However, a bailiff doesn't have the power to restrain you. Operatives of G4S might win that power. How many deaths are we going to see in the detention areas of G4S as a result of someone ultimately not paying one of their bills that has gone to court? Are these guys the company you want knocking at your door? How can the Conservative government feel comfortable giving a company like this, arguably a very sensitive contract in regards to people's welfare and emotional state? And here's just a side note, G4S, that currently benefits annually from £600 million of contracts from government, has a former government minister, Whitehall advisors and civil servants on its board. And they include former Home Secretary and Defence Secretary John Reid, now Baron Reid of Cardorban, former Met Police Commissioner Lord Condon, who earns apparently £124,000 plus as a non-executive director though of G4S, former prison governor Tom Wheatley, and helpfully for G4S energy meter monitoring arm the former energy regulator Claire Spottiswoode, and she's also a non-executive director, but she earns £56,000 plus. It's a big festering money pot of conflicting interest, favouritism, and the ideal of lining each other's pockets at the cost of making us toe the line, filling our minds with fear in the hope of control over the masses. In most cases, bailiffs, well, they're sort of okay. They're just doing their job. But when you start to notice G4's operatives knocking at your door, what are you going to do? The best thing you can do at the moment is click that subscribe button. And once you've done that, bang a comment in the box below and tell everyone if you have had any dealings with G4S on any level. And what do you think about the onset of these new arrest powers? The previous video is over there at the top, and why not take a look at the playlist and click on that circle below and be part of the future. Thanks for watching. Bye bye for now.